Okay. So that is about the funding cycles, what a thing is. Now, what happened, unfortunately, is that people started coming up with an ideas, keeping in mind to make money on funding. So that is the bad thing that has started happening. So what happens is, let me start up an idea, and my entire idea revolves around whether I get funding or not for this idea. And once I get funding, the valuation of this company increases. And then once the valuation of the company increases, I move out. So what happens is that the company is left to no man's people, or it's left often somebody has to take up that idea and take it forward. So the bad part is that the founder should never be left out of the company. If the founder has a gut feeling that this idea will work, then he should enter into this business of startups. If the founder doesn't have an idea, or he doesn't believe in the idea of what he thinks works, then he should not get into even venturing into this as a business in the first place. That is the first point. Second point, what I would like to make, which is important, is you need to validate your idea. And how do you validate your idea? You need to validate your idea to see if this idea is solving any common purpose, or is it solving any problem of your customer. Okay. Now, when you're trying to solve problems of your customers, there are layers to it. So, like in school in olden days, we learned about roti, kapda, makan. So those were the basic problems where you need food to eat, you need shelter, and you need clothes to wear. Once you have solved, and now you have internet, that's the fourth one. So once you have solved the very basics of what people need, their survival and existence is taken care. After survival and existence, you're talking about how do you improve their lifestyle? How do you improve their standards of living? Right? So from shelter, you start building houses, then you start trying to have little more luxury. So that little more luxury doesn't have an end. So now you're talking about standards of living. Now you have to evaluate, is your product trying to solve the very basics that you're trying to give housing and clothing to entire person, to your audience, or does it fall into improving the standards of living? Once my standards of living has come to a comfortable stage, right, then I go into luxurious living or the comfortable living, where standards of living is over. Now I'm talking about quality of my living. Okay, so I have a house, I have a decent car, I have a decent income every month. Every month, insurance is there, family is taken care. Now, what do I want? I want quality of living. So, first, when I bought a car, it was for a purpose to move four people, my family, from point A to point B. So, that is taken care. Now, 10 years after that, I want a car that can also give me some luxury in good quality. Okay. So, after luxury of living, then there is a next segment who are super wealthy, who is only 1% of the entire world population. But are you targeting those people, super wealthy guys, and you want to be a Robin Hood where you want to take away some money from them and get into your. So these layers are there. Now, in these layers, where does your idea fit? Does it fit into improving the quality or improving the standards? In improving the standards, you will have to grade it, put your sense to it, and say, immediate standards of living, is it improving? Is it that I'm giving them a desktop at their house, or is it that I'm giving them a laptop at their house that they can start working from tomorrow? Or then I'm giving them basic internet and I'm increasing their internet speed, or what am I giving? I'm giving them warm clothing, and from warm clothing, I'm giving them a designer clothing. So there's so many things. So which layer of that are you following? Now you have defined that your idea is falling into certain layer or certain bracket. That is what you want to do so that the impact of that is for that purpose. You have defined your purpose. Once you have defined your purpose, the next what you need to do is to understand Am I reinventing the wheel, or is there somebody who's already doing this? Is this idea which is only to me, or is this the idea which is common to everybody? And did somebody solve this? Right? So if somebody has already solved this purpose, how did they solve it? Why are people not going and using that guy's product? Why do you feel that there is still a vacuum that I also need to step into this business in the first place? Either the demand could be so much that I can also step in and kind of share the demand and dilute that so that he can make money as well, I can make money as well, somebody can, we can add value in a different manner. For example, there is a school. A school can cater to certain number of people, say 1,000 people or 1,500 people in one area. So there is already a school. I don't need to reinvent how a school functions. But the demand is so much, there is a need for another school in my area. So I build another school. So are you following into that bracket where you are catering to the demand, where the demand is so much that you need to have another product? Is
Excuse
that
me, sir.
what you're looking at?
I
Hello?
think there appears to be some volume deficiency. Can increase the input volume.
Yeah, can you hear me now better?
Uh,
Yeah. Can you hear me better?
yeah, yeah. Okay, please.
Yeah. So from understanding what layer your business is, second thing you're trying to understand is there anybody else who's also doing it, and why is that you still feel that there is a gap that you also need to start the same business. So the reason what I told you was the examples of school, that one school can cater to only limited number of people. So I would want to start another school. That could be a reason, or there could be a reason that although somebody is doing it, he's not doing it in the right manner, is what you feel. Okay. Whether we are no one to judge whether it is right or wrong, but his perspective is different, your perspective is different. So had the same thing been done in this manner, then I think it is a better fit for the society, or it will have a more traction from the society. I would want to do it in this way. So two people trying to solve the same problem in a different manner, where you feel that there are a lot of audience who will also watch for your kind of problem, or who would also want to sign up for your kind of approach to solving the problem. So that could be a difference. So you start understanding what, how you can make a point, and then you know that one day these are all going to be your competitors who are trying to cater to the same audience. Now you have to, next stage is you try to differentiate and stand out of the competitors and say that how am I different from all these people? Right? Everybody is different in their own manner. That's what in business language you call it as USP. So what is my USP? How am I different from these people? Now, when these guys are all different, whatever is that quotient of difference that you have is what you are trying to sell hard to the same community, saying that this is why I am different from these people. You need to come to me to buy this, buy my service. While the other guy is also trying to say that this is how I am different. Now, the audience make a choice based on the priorities of the audience. Okay, that is this quotient really what attracts me, or is this quotient what really attracts me? So, how do they make a choice? They make a choice purely on the bubble of influence what they had throughout their life. So, what when I say bubble of influence, if I say a dog, some dog comes into your mind. Say for Shiva, his pet dog comes into our mind. For say Murli, there's a street dog that comes into your mind. For somebody, his neighbor's dog comes into your mind. So when I say a dog word, on the 20 people, there could be different dogs that come into mind. Right? When I put a photograph of a dog, your perception changes from all the different dogs to something very close to what the photograph I'm talking about. Right? So I've changed that. Now, why is that everybody had a different dog in their mind? Is because the influence of the dog in past 20 years, 25 years, or whatever is your age, whichever dog has the highest influence, or whichever dog influence is the latest. Maybe yesterday you just got bitten by a dog. That dog comes into your mind. Okay? That influence of that dog comes into your mind, and that becomes like a priority. So the prioritization of which dog comes into your mind is because of the experience that you have gone through, past years you have lived. These experiences of you tell you that amongst 4 or 5 companies, This USP is what I should go for, and then you go for it. That is one more way. Now that is where the SWOT comes into place when you're trying to do competitor analysis, trying to say that what are my competitors doing? How are my competitors trying to sell or sell, and how can I sell? So that understanding of your competitors start to getting more important. So one, you understand your product. Second, you understand your competitors. While you understand your competitors, you also understand their strengths, you understand your strengths, you understand their weaknesses, you understand your weaknesses. So basically, you try to put out your strengths first. They might even try to suppress your weaknesses, or they might want to even communicate your weaknesses. So you should be ready for that. So, you guys, if you want to understand what SWOT is, it is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So every business has strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you understand your business in that manner proper. So once you have done this SWOT, and there are two products, suppose both of them have same kind of approach, and your USP is also same. Then what do? Or you need to stand ahead of the curve to get that sales traction. So then you try to show value, right? So if two people are selling the same water bottle for 20 rupees, or same biscuit packet for 20 rupees, you need to show value. How do you show value? That value, if I'm doing a service for, if I'm doing a service for 10 rupees and somebody else is also doing a service for 10 rupees, I try to offer you more than what the MRP is. So say you know that 20 rupees is a fixed standardized number for a 1 liter water bottle. Now in this 1 liter water bottle, I try to give you a little more. Either I try to say you buy a water bottle, I'll give you a biscuit packet free, or I'll try to say that you're getting 20% extra for the say 10 rupees. So I'm trying to push in more ways to give you that value for that money. So that is the approach some people take. Now value, this is tangible, where I'm saying 20% extra, or I'm giving you a biscuit packet or another water bottle. Tangible. Value need not be tangible when it comes to marketing business. Value also can be very emotional. Now, emotional value is what emotion you get when you drink that water. Okay, the quality of the product, or what emotion you get when you eat the biscuit. So that emotion, the taste. When you say your mother's food is best, everybody's mother is, for everybody their mother's food is best. So the same ingredients, two people can cook it in a very different manner, giving you the same ingredients, same formula. So these products also get into that level of competition where everybody is doing it, but I need to be slightly different, and that is where I try to capture, and that is the emotional quotient that I have. So now I try to start using my emotions for the marketing purpose, right? So these emotions, slowly what happens, create a perception amongst the audience or the consumers, that they start seeing your product. They have certain opinions about your product based on so many factors, based on recommendations they got. Somebody, suppose I take Ashirwad Atta. My mom makes Ashirwad Atta, so I like it because I don't know if it is because of the Ashirwad Atta or it is because of my mom who is making it. Then I start positioning Ashirwad Atta into my head as a superior one compared to something else. Until the day I have eaten something much better than that, right? So this perception is more about branding. Okay, this branding is more about having perception about the product. Now in branding, the next stage you need to understand is how to position your brand, wherein the books they teach you brand positioning. Got it? So if I'm talking about positioning of a brand, how do I explain positioning? Suppose if I say Nirma, or if I say Ariel, and if I tell you guys, why don't you just in your mind rate Nirma 10 out of 10, how many marks do you do? How much do you give for Ariel? Somebody would give Nirma say 3 or 4 out of 10, or 4.5 out of 10. Somebody would give Ariel 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. Now, what made you give this A more marks and B less number of marks in your mind? Okay, there could be so many factors. There could be how when you have used it, what you have felt about it. There could be maybe somebody has given Ariel less and Nirma more. Okay, maybe somebody felt that this is too expensive, so I give it less marks. This exactly fits into my bubble of influence, so I give it more marks. Somebody felt that the packaging is good, this feels posh, or when I wash my hands, my hands are nice and I don't get spoiled. I don't feel acidic in my hands, so I give this more. I give this less. My washing machine behaves well with this, so I give it. So, so many experiences on quality and who has referred it to you, or maybe your grandmom has always used it, so you're continuing use it. That perception is how do you position your brand. Now, if you are a startup, right, and you want to have a business, and it is important that when you are starting, you position your brand. I'll come to brand positioning later, but you understand the importance of having your vision intact. What is the purpose, very purpose of why you have started your business? Okay, that is your mission, right? And where do you want to go? Problem that you want to solve, how many people you want to be impacted with your product, and where do you see yourself in future, 5 years, 10 years, 5 days, 10 days, short term goals, long term goals, but where do you see yourself ahead? So that is your vision. So you need to very clearly define what your vision is, what your mission is, why you have started, and where do you want to go. Then you can then have strategy, which is how do you go there? What is the best way to reach there? Best way to influence? Shortest way to influence? So these are the things that come to the strategy part. Strategy part. So when you're starting about your uh, new idea, whether it is a product or a service, you need to understand how do you position yourself in the market. Suppose you have created a perception where people are giving you 4 out of 10 in their mind. One could give you 4, one could give you 5, one could give you 3, and average I'm talking about. So suppose someone gives you 4 out of 10. Now, every year you need to have a strategy so that you can increase that mental perception level of these guys from 4 to 4.5 to 5 to 6 and 6.5 and ahead, so that you can keep increasing that. That in future will turn into more sales for you guys. Got it? How do you do that? So the easiest what I say is that when you're starting up itself, try to start with a higher number. Think about so many aspects in the starting that you don't have to travel from 4 to 7. Maybe you can start at 6. Okay, this is not tangible. This is an average value. You should understand that. So start about 6, 6.5, and then how you can push it every year from 6. So maybe it takes 2 years to push from 6.5 to 7, while it could take 1 year to push from 4 to 4.5. But the 2 year waiting from 6 to 7 is much important than 1 year you're moving from 4 to 5. Okay. So try to be there, try to maintain it at that position, and that is brand positioning. Giving you an advertising example where you all can understand or you're familiar with is Cadbury's, right? When you see a Cadbury's ad on TV, there are 2 types of ads you get. So, 1 second. First ad, what you get. The first ad, what you get is a direct ad of a 5-star or a Gems. This is a 5-star, then the Suresh, Ramesh, they come. They try to sell you 5 stars. The other ads, what Cadbury's does is try to create a perception on the brand. They say, kuch meeta ho jao, like, eat something. There's a good event. Why don't you eat something that is sweet? So when you are going with that kuch meeta ho jao ad, they're trying to position their brand as and they're trying to create a perception that immaterial about which product of Cadbury's you're buying. Bonvita is a Cadbury's product. 5-star is a Cadbury's, Dairy Milk is a Cadbury's, Gems is a Cadbury's. So immaterial about what products you're going to buy. the value of those products, or the value of the vision mission inline of those products is that we would want to be associated with the happiness quotient. When you're having a happy moment, you want to be associated with that. Okay, so that these advertisements are meant to create a brand value, or to create or maintain the position of the brand, or to increase the position of the brand. So while parallelly there is a branding exercise where we are trying to address the perception of people of how they perceive a brand, there is also a parallel advertising which is going, which is saying buy 5-star, buy gems, or buy things. So this is an advertising parallel line. This is a branding parallel line, which is important. Both are important. Got it? So branding, when I'm saying is creating perception, it is not bound to season, right? So today I create a season and I create a brand. So advertising of the product, suppose if I say fruity, ITC fruity, summer you drink more, or maybe winter you drink less, or something like that. So everything has a cycle, right? Everything has a timeline. Timeline in the sense, it has a high tide for when you cannot push the product. It has a low tide when you can't push the product. For example, water bottles are sold mostly in summer. Frankly, it's actually sold mostly in rainy season, but general perception is summer people buy a lot of water, drink a lot of water, they're always thirsty. So when you put a water bottle, so the season for water bottles, all the billboards during summer times are all taken by water bottles. All the billboards for schools and colleges are taken at one point of time. There is a season for marriages. All the people who are selling jewelry is trying to sell it that season. So you have these Sankranti offers or Ashadam offers and all that. So that caters to that. So if you look at the calendar, every product, 99%, most of the products fall into few months which are high tide for them and few months which are low tide for them. So the basic idea is, on the high tide time, you push your product and do advertising. On the low tide time, you do a marketing campaign. So you create perception, right? So once you have created a strong perception and your tide is low, when the tide is high, you can push the product easily. So that's a strategy which universally people are doing at subconscious level, right? So that is one thing I think for the startups, they should also understand that they can do that. That's about perception. Then what are the questions that you need to answer? What makes someone adapt to your product? Okay. If you want to make a note about it, you can make. You need to answer a question. How does a brand advance product adoption? So you want them to advance that adoption. Or what is your brand strategy? How does this apply to my startup? Okay. Then how do I get started? And what is that you are going to put in? Okay, then you need to understand some facts. So I think till here, I'll just take a break so that if someone has missed out or not understood the trail of what I said, I'll be happy to answer, take it to the next level before someone sleeps. Can we just have the unmute everybody so I can listen to people? Shiva, you are on mute and you're talking.
Okay, thanks for habit old habits day. Hard to say. Right. Okay. So if participants have anything to ask, they can ask now. We'll take in, as I said, we'll wait for 5-6 minutes. I also have few points to add. I mean, few points to ask. If nobody asks, I'll ask at the end. Otherwise, I'll only start.
Usha garu, you have something to ask? Renuka garu? You can unmute and just.
Nothing, sir. Concept is clear.
Okay, I have one thing, sir. Now, see, as we understand the perception, some products in startups, first of all, they are like, many of them are bootstrapped and their poor resource settings are there. And that tech guys, I don't know how much they'll understand about branding and advertising. And if they want to take some expertise also, it will charge them. So how they can leverage with existing knowledge or with the internet facilities to brand themselves? Is it such thing possible? Or is it something you have to take some agency or someone who understands the market should go?
See, one thing I'll come to a point is when you say branding, branding does not mean only your logo, right? So I had said that branding means perception, right? Suppose if I talk to you about a restaurant branding, okay? Restaurant logo is a part of so many other elements that becomes a brand. The person who is serving, his etiquette is also part of the brand. The interiors and how the restaurant makes you feel is part of the brand. How the tables are placed, how the taste is, how they have served, how they have interacted with you, the t-shirts they wear, the cutlery, everything is part of the branding exercise. What people think is branding means logo, right? Logo is not branding. It is a part of a brand. It is a really important element in the brand. But branding is lot more things, including your website, including your business card. When you are running your business, you are also your brand ambassador to your business, right? How you talk reflects on the brand that you are associated with. That is why you go and pay money to people to become your brand ambassadors. So that's one thing. Second thing about resources, I'm sure senior people who are there with me would agree that this generation is blessed with internet, which has abundance of information. All you have to do is try to grade and find out which information is authentic and stick onto that and learn from that. So it's like a knife. You do good with it, you chop vegetables, you kill a human being, that's your call. So internet is absolutely in that direction. So abundance of information could be good or could be bad. It is good if you know to filter and go to the right source. If you don't know to filter and you're looking at WhatsApp and you're believing in every forward that comes, then that's like the worst thing that can happen to you, right? So you question the source. I think what people lack today is brutal common sense. Okay, so if you have that importance of how much importance common sense is in today's language, in today's world, I think those are the guys who will do good in business. Okay, so put your common sense in place and judge and try to find out, is this information authentic, right? So are there tools to find out if they're authentic? No, there are no tools. You put your common sense and find out, right? DD News. If Doordarshan gives you a news in one line, stick to that. All these days we have learned, and that today we find that more authentic than the drama that is happening in all the news channels, right? So you have your ways to find out authentic. Now, when you come into your resources of these new startups, do they have resources? How do they do? The same thing. Internet can solve 50-60% or 70% in some cases to learn the language that you need to code to get a startup. If it is a tech company, right? A startup need not be a tech company. It could be a startup in any manner. So to do your research, to do your competitor analysis, to do your psychology charts of your customers. So we've not discussed that point of how do you understand who your customers are? How do you grade your customers? Suppose if I was talking about Ashirvad Atta, right? If I'm selling Ashirvad Atta, I'll just come back to your point. So I'll just finish what I've not covered is grading of your customers. If I'm the person who is going to sell Ashirvad Atta, what are the things I'm going to consider? I'm going to consider who is the person who's going to go to the supermarket to pick up finally this atta from the shelf while this is sitting with 4 or 5 other competitor brands, right? So there's a Pillsbury who is sitting next to it. There is one more Baba Ramdev's atta sitting next to it. Okay, somebody wants it 50% discount, then they pick up Baba Ramdev's atta. Somebody wants something. So there are competitors who are sitting next to it, and within this 5 or 6 people, I have to make my product stand out so that someone picks it up. How do I do that? Is I try to understand the customer psychology. Before understanding the customer psychology, I need to understand who my customer is. So who is the final person in the family who is going to go to the supermarket to pick it up? Are they doing an online purchase? Then who is the person who is going to sit and make the decision to buy this online, right? Or are they going to a kiranam shop and not a supermarket, and the kiranam guy tells you, don't buy this, madam, buy this, this is even better. So is he the person who is going to influence you? Or if he influences you, are you still going to watch and say, no, I want this? Maybe in some cases you would want to experiment and you would want to try something new. So based on so many people who are trying to influence you, based on the TV ads, print ads, and vocal, your uncle telling you and all these things, you are going to find out who the decision maker is. Now, grading these decision makers, is it going to be a male person going to the supermarket? Is it going to be a female person going to go? Okay, some cases male, some cases female. What is the age group? I'm surely not going to send a 2-year kid to go and make a decision to buy which art items. Maybe I'll send a schoolboy with clear instructions on a paper to go and pick it up. So I'm still the decision maker. But so I'm only talking about the decision maker. So what is the right age group who are taking the decision, right? Of each product. You're talking about deodorants, it could be a different age group. You're talking about giving you just an example of atta, it could be a different age group. You're talking about say washing powder. Maybe some people in your family has no say of what washing powder you're using. So you start grading them by gender. You sometimes grade them by age. Then you also can grade them by economical status. So your product, like going back to the first introduction what I gave you, which layer do you fall? Lifestyle, increasing their lifestyle, or standards of living. In that standards of living, which layer? So that layer is directly proportional to that much money they're going to spend on that product. So you also grade them by economical purchasing power. So if there is a salaried person whose income is say 25,000 per month, their style of purchasing power is different from somebody who is earning a lakh per month. Okay, so their power is different. So whom are you catering to? So you start grading them. Age, I spoke about their economical power to buy, their gender sometimes, location sometimes. So I was doing once a campaign for Eastern Masala. I don't know if maybe some ladies here know about Eastern Masala. Right.
Eastern Masala.
So Eastern Masala, what happened is geographical. I will tell you how the context of psychology, when it comes to giving you an example of cultural psychology, right? So Eastern Masala, we were doing in Chennai while we were doing in Hyderabad. Okay. Chennai, I was selling 100 grams of Eastern Masala or a kg of Eastern Masala for $1,000. Hyderabad, it should be plus or minus 10% generally. Got it? Hyderabad, I was selling it in sachets where I have divided the $100 into a 100 gram sachet. Okay. So each 100 gram sachet ideally should be sold for $10 if I'm selling it for $100 per kg. Right? Just giving you an example. So I'm selling masala in Chennai for 100 rupees per kg. I'm selling masala in Hyderabad in sachets of say 100 grams, which means each sachet should be 10 rupees if I have to sell it at say 100 rupees per kg. I was selling each sachet for $20, which makes my 1 kg in Hyderabad for $2,000, while I was selling in Chennai for $1,000 because I was not selling sachets, but I was selling a kg packets. So if someone has to buy Eastern Masala, they have to buy either a half kg or they have to buy a kg packet. Half kg, they pay 50 rupees and buy, or they buy a kg, which they buy for $100. So the guy who is getting it for $1,000, $100 in Chennai should be much happier. Whereas the guy who in Hyderabad, who is buying it for $200 or 2 times the price of Chennai, should feel that I'm actually deceiving him by selling it twice the price in Hyderabad. But if I look at talking to these people, the Hyderabad guys were super happy and the Chennai guys were not super happy. They were not so happy about it. Then we did a research trying to understand what is the psychology and what went wrong. If you look at it from the cultural view, cultural connotation, Chennai people, I think most of the household women here would understand. Chennai people would always want to make their own masala, and they're not super interested about the masala that comes from packets because they don't believe that the packet can be as effective or as good taste as what they make at home. One. Second thing, they are taught by their grandmothers and pedammas and all these people how to store it in certain manner, right? Hyderabad people, which is more of biryani eating, they don't look at it that way. For them, they need sachets, where each time I open a sachet, it is fresh in its aroma. So I'm more comfortable with sachets. And the biryani guys, when they're talking in the language of sachets as a measurement tool. So if you're doing 1 kg of rice, just put 2 sachets of masala. So for him, paying the $20 for the sachet was much easier, whereas he's getting a fresh aroma and he's using sachets for measuring. While Chennai guys don't care about measuring, they know to store it. It is there in their culture that they know to store those aromas and they know to make their own taste. So they always feel that the ones that are coming in the packets are not as superior as what they make. So me, I could not sell it for more than 100 in Chennai, where I could sell it for the 200 in Hyderabad and people are still happy. Those 100 people are not happy. So that is also how you geographically grade them based on cultural connotations. So there is a geographical grading that is happening, and there is also cultural grading. So cultural grading is somebody's culture is to eat meat, somebody's culture is not. Somebody's culture is to eat rice, somebody's culture is to eat wheat, somebody's culture is to eat breakfast in the morning, somebody's culture is to eat breakfast in the night. So these cultural habits also define who is going to be the person who is going to buy. So you need to understand grading of your customer. So you understand your customer, you grade your customer, you pinpoint, that is your customer analysis. So you do your competitor analysis and you understand the customer, you do your customer analysis. So coming back now that I've spoken about this point, coming back to a question what you asked is that these startups, how, when they don't have money, how do they take it forward? One is they need to have a presentation where they can pitch and convince a person, maybe it could be their uncle or it could be an unknown person, that their idea is so good that it has a potential to make it big. Okay, coming back to everything that I have said, you need to evaluate your idea first. If the idea is evaluated, then you need to make a presentation so somebody can put in money if money is required to do so. If you're starting a small business, sometimes you don't need money. Suppose you're starting a business, which means a lot of raw material and capital, you need money. Okay, so before that, check on internet. What are the source codes that are open, right? There are a lot of open source codes. Don't go and invest money in a very non-wise manner where you start buying technology which is already available for free, right? So that will save a lot of time and energy and money for the beginners. So there are some which needs certain amount of money to be pumped in. So be it. There are so many which you don't need, you can still get away. So you need to prioritize that. Okay, anybody else wants to ask something that I can talk?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
Sir, for investment and advertisement or branding, so do we have any specific models like, for the investment patterns? As for example, for startup, so and so models will work out better at so and so time. And maybe after once the business comes to some sort of stage where break even point is there, maybe some other models that from the history, any sort of information on this, please.
Yes, there are, purely based on what demand it is asking for, right? So today, if you say that investing in real estate is much better than investment in something else, or somebody says investment in a school is better than investment in a kiranam shop, because you feel the demand for school is more sustained manner, right? So if you look at the trends, you need to look at trends which keeps changing, right? Again, these trends are limited to different country has different trends. So if you look at trends right now, say technology stands on top where people are looking for investing in technology. I don't know the trends, but I'm just giving you a vague idea. Then Some people would want to invest in healthcare, which is at 2. Maybe real estate is doing well. So education is doing at 6th and 7th place in some. So you understand the trend. So today, because of COVID, the need for healthcare has suddenly gone up. So now investing in healthcare may be doing good while investing from the investment's purpose. So now when I'm talking about investors for business, okay, there are 2 types. You understand? So one is a guy who is just putting in money where he's going to pull out his money with extra money, right? Extra interest or something. So he's putting 100 rupees today. After 2 years, he's going to say, I made 200 rupees, so I'll pull out my business. 2 years or 3 years, I've made twice my money, so I'm better than investing in the bank, so I'm pulling out. From the business perspective, this is not a guy you should take investment from as a priority. You should get an investment from a strategic investor. Like if I say, if I'm starting a school, I would not go to an investor who's going to pull out in 3 years' time. I would go to an investor who also invests and understands the school business, and he is from an education background where he can contribute to that business.
Yes.
Okay. So the person, what value he is bringing to the business might not be tangible, but it could be more than what his investment is getting to the business. Okay. So instead of giving priority to somebody who's just going to put money and not knowing anything about what I'm going to do with his money, and he's just going to pull out after 3 years, I would rather take a loan from the government, from the bank, and do it than seek an investment from such kind of people. So always for startups, strategic investor who's been there, who's done that, who's come with bundle of experience could be good. Sometimes it could backfire. That's a case because he could interfere too much into your business and your thought process is different. If you are strong and you're experienced and you know that you can sit on the driving chair and take it forward, you would not want a strategic investor. So whether you want a strategic investor or a regular investor, the business needs to take call on various parameters.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else wants to talk? Ask anything? Do I have to go into the subject knowledge of what is branding and logic and emotion?
Sir, emotions, like you said, many people say when you bring a new product, before the product has been launched, the advertisement has to reach all the people. And then only your product really catches the market. I want your opinion on that.
Right. So the thing is your video on, madam? Can I just have a look at who was talking? Can you just, yeah, ma'am. So the thing, ma'am, here is that when you say a sale is made that you want to buy a car, right? And you have decided on various cars, you have seen brochures and stuff. You have decided that this is the car I want to buy. For me, I feel the sale is already done over there. Okay. Whether how you get that money, how you pull in that money, you take a loan or you take from somebody and then go to a showroom, and then you might buy a car after 3 months or a flat after 3 months. But in your mind, the sale is over, done there. Okay. So that for me to able to make you take that instant decision with a print ad that yes, this is what I want to buy. You might not buy it that day. But for me, from a designer, I have made you take the decision that day. So as a designer, the sale is done then. Then what happens most of the time, I'll tell you one key ingredient which people who have been in this industry miss out. One, the sale is done in the mind. The sale is not when you have paid the money. Okay. That is one thing. Second thing is, I was trying to say something, it just slipped my mind. Fine, I'll get back to that. So I can't hear you, ma'am. You're on mute.
That means the ad before the product comes is more efficient for a sale. That's what you're trying to say.
Could be. See, suppose if you're buying a real estate flat, right? The perception. So when someone gives you a brochure, you know from the brochure that everybody is going to exaggerate in this brochure 10 times what the reality is, right? So when you know from the brochure, you might not believe the brochure unless you go and see the product. because that is the opinion you have on a real estate. But when you come to automobile, when you see a brochure, you know that this automobile is going to be exactly the way it is going to be in the brochure, right? So for you to take a decision on automobile is more easier than to take a decision on real estate, because you have to go see the product and all that. That is there. Second thing is the hierarchy of the mode of communication to you. Okay. So if your friend comes and tells you that, Usha Garu, I have this flat, why don't you have a look at this flat, because I know you're looking to buy a flat. You will give more importance to your friend because he doesn't have a motive behind giving you a wrong information, right? He's not going to gain economically or he's going to monetary wise. So you trust somebody who is neutral, who's not from an advertising agency, more than the brochure also. So a brochure could be very fancy, but you'll still go with a feeling because you know that the goodwill of this person has motivated you to go and check it out. It's your call later stage. But this emotion is stronger than that emotion. So mode of communication at different stages is different. But before the product, you have the sale is done on the day you have taken a decision in your mind that you will buy the product.
Okay,
Later,
these for like from what you say, the bigger commodities probably you need a lot of advertisement. So if anyone who a startup is starting a small commodity like say everyday, like even your Eastern masala or things like that. So such kind of businesses, what is your advice?
it is
Should
not
they
about
invest
bigger.
on? Should
It
they
is not
invest
about
on?
bigger.
Hmm.
No. It is about how you consume the product is what is going to take a call. You take a call on the mode of communication on how you consume the product. If you are talking about say a house versus Eastern masala, house you have to go, you have to look at the house and stuff. So unless you do that, you're not going to get a feeling of that house. But if you're talking about masala, that also is that unless you have experienced the masala, you're not going to take a call. Just because the advertising is so big, the priority is not about how good the advertising is being. The priority is going to be the experience of it. Before the product launch, how do I make you experience the product? I get Jesudha or I get Suhasini or all these faces who are the brand ambassadors, where you feel that you have to connect with them and you feel that they are one amongst you, so that when they tell you about this product being really good, then I can trust them. So their goodwill is playing a place which makes you go and have a perception or create that perception of that brand, saying that this is going to be the one which I really wanted once it's launched. So there are ways to create that perception.
Your last point, you're talking about how you are going to influence. Your friend is going to influence you, and you are going to trust because there is no vested interest or possible vested interest is not there. So you might get influenced by the friend or a family or someone.
That could be a higher grade of influence than a brochure.
That is one thing. And connecting to the to startups, most of the startups, I'm hearing this word called influencing marketing. No, in especially is happening with the social media platforms, right? In fact, even I recall Kent, which is having a brand ambassador like Hema Malini, they could not launch their bread making unit in the TV, but they have launched in a YouTube channel. Somebody is having 20 lakh subscribers. Can you shed some light on that influencing marketing?
So I'll tell you what, the subscriber business of this new age social media business, there are goods and bads to it, obviously. Having 20 lakh doesn't mean you're going with 20 lakh audience. Okay. So tomorrow I'll tell you what, giving you a very example because you're coming from an education background. If I have to fill an engineering college seat of 100 people, olden age, in the sense yesteryears, I would have targeted 1,000 people. So my communication is, if I communicate to 1,000 people, I'll be able to fill 100. So my ratio 10%. Is 100 is to 1,000.
10%.
Okay. Now, when it comes to social, right? So how did I do this 1,000? I've taken a list of 1,000 students from different colleges. Like every year you have this headache of colleges come to your house, they try to talk to your kid and talk to the parent and say, give a brochure, come to a school and join. So from average, from a child's perspective, there are at least 10 people who do that. Okay. So he has to make a choice in one of 10. from the school's perspective, they know that they have met 10,000 students, so their 100 seats are going to be filled. I'm giving you a ratio which is, if you do 10,000, 100 will be filled. Now, when it comes to social, right? Now I try to put the same formula. 10,000 people, if I get 10,000 people hit my screen and like the ad, will I get 100 seats? No, because the 10,000 people who are clicking are my grandfather, my grandmother, somebody else who is clicking that ad, right? It's not the child or the decision maker who is clicking the ad. Now, if I look at it in a family, there are 5 people in my family or 4 people in my family, mother, wife, sister, brother, or someone. Out of these 4 people, there's only one guy who is actually the right audience, which means you need to have 4 times the 10,000 or 5 times the 10,000 to come to the 10,000 in the first place. So, which means that I have to go to 50,000 so that I get 10,000 filtered right people to get 100 conversions. So offline I did only 10,000, but online I'm forced to do 50,000 because I know that 5 people out of
That just goes.
people out of 5 are useless in taking the decision.
So specific customers, that's what you get on
Correct.
offline.
Correct. So the other hand, if you do, I was doing a campaign for sanitary pads for lower pyramid, trying to influence the lower pyramid ladies to get into the habit of using sanitary pads. Okay. Their social media makes zero influence for them. They're not the people target audience who are going to get influenced by Facebook to go and buy a sanitary pad in a kirana shop. Not even the supermarket guys. So you should have a judgment. You should know whether social media is the right platform or not. Just because it is social media doesn't mean it is going to be the right platform for everybody, right? So social media, print media, when you're trying to say word on word influence through influence and all this, what is your product? Is the media right? Got it? So that is the discretion you need to take. For everything, social media is not the answer.
No, but if you see, and again, let me take your own example, like school education thing. I had to physically meet 10,000 people in that case. If I want to get 100 admissions. Now here, I mean, a lot of resources involved. I have to get campaigner, you know, they have to go petrol, diesel, so much time, and time is also another money. And when it comes to social media, within that time frame, you're able to reach 50, 60,000 people and even more, right? So you have to, I think you have to make a balance between like time, resources, money, and who is your audience.
What is the quality of these 100,000 versus the 10,000 you personally meet? What is the quality of influence you do? When you meet in person, there is an emotional transaction that happens between me and the person, right? So he's going to look into your eye and trust you. Now, it's like me taking a Zoom class with everybody's video shut, just talking to a wall or a screen, looking at my own face. Doesn't have as much emotion as when you're teaching in a class. You are more motivated to teach in a class because you know who is interested, you know who is sleeping, right?
Right.
So the same thing with advertising. When you are going online, you are just hitting. You're just sending out communication that this is available for buying. If somebody is already desperate to buy for so many other reasons, for him conversion is easy. You might convert easily in the initial days, but it is not something that you might sustain for long. Context to context. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm not fighting for one product.
Right.
So immediately, suppose there is a need in the society for everybody to get certain vaccine. Just a simple communication is needed for you to go and buy that vaccine. Where do I buy? How much do I buy? Over, because the need is already created. The need is not created. The pressure on communication online could be more than the pressure of somebody coming to person and talking on an emotional level, trying to make you understand. It's bespoke, right? It's talking to him on a customized level. That could be easy.
Sure. Yeah.
So you need to understand the context in which you are selling your product. Whether it's a service or a product.
Yes.
So anybody else who want to ask him something? M. Kalpana Krishnan, someone, Rumi, Ramurthy Garu, Neela Rajesh, Janardhan Raju. Anyone wants to talk something else? Nagbhushan. Should we stop it over here? Is there anything else you guys want to talk to me? You can ask.
When you talk about the branding and other things, no?
This basically, I was trying to tell you that what makes what makes someone more adapt to your product. You need to talk about your logic. You need to talk about logic versus emotion, right? Let me just.
I also like to know a few more things about the pattern of advertising. How do you pattern your product and put it as an advertisement, either on the cover of the product or in a brochure? What is the main thing that you have to follow?
Right, this is interesting. Glad you asked. So there is certain things our brains are tuned with. Okay, so there is a subject called semiotics. If you want to make a note, you can make SEMIOTICS. Okay, SEMIOTICS. There is a book by semiotics by what's his name?
You can type it also.
Yeah, let's see. Daniel Chandler. Okay, I'll try to type it in the chat. Okay, you got it. Try to read this book. So this is semiotics is a subject about science, SIGNS. Okay.
Okay.
So
Daniel Chandler.
Daniel Chandler. You can just download a book or buy a book on Amazon.
Right.
Read if you're interested. So it's a study of science, SIGNS science. I'm not talking about science. So like I was telling you about dog and influence and stuff, right? What if there is one person in the audience who doesn't even know English? Got it. So in his head, there's no dog that is going to come into his head. Got it. So when I draw a dog, then something comes into his head. So I'm trying to influence him through a sign, SIGNS science. And now I was talking about cultural things. So in this part of the world, we are used to reading from left to right from our childhood. So which is our brain is tuned from reading from left to right. So our eye naturally moves from left to right. You go to Dubai, their eye naturally moves from right to left. Got it. So now when you're designing a package or a poster, it is obvious that you have to put something that is more important on your left hand side, while you put something on your right hand side which is not important or secondary information. If you put your secondary information onto your left hand side and the primary information onto your right hand side, then you're missing out the plot where in that 5, when somebody is taking a decision where you have to pick up your product in the shelf, one amongst the 5, you have missed a chance by just not putting it in the right order. Right? So suppose if you are considering a poster, what is there in a poster? Okay, let's say a simple poster. So I don't have a methodology of talking to you like a PowerPoint. I'm sorry for that.
That's fine. This is good.
So
we will contact you later on. You just give us a contact number.
Right. So when you talk about a poster, there are say 5 things in the poster. One is something that can grab your attention. Second thing is the heading. What is the product all about? It's a heading. Something, then there is an intro which is a detail about. Then who is the manufacturer of that product? What is the cost of the product? There's a consist of these elements. Now, as a designer or as a person who runs the business, I need to understand what is the hierarchy that I want my audience to read in that poster. Do I want them to read the price as the first hierarchy? In a context, maybe yes. In a context, maybe no. Right?
Probably when he gives a discount, then price is most important.
Probably, right. So you are taking a business call on that given day as what element in this poster needs certain hierarchy. Okay. So now when you are doing a Word document, How do you highlight something? You either put it on bold, or you underline it, or you change the color, or you increase the font size, because you want that to stand out amongst the other paragraphs that you're sending out. So you have chosen 5 or 6 methods to highlight certain products, certain text, certain word in it. Same thing in the poster. There are colors which are strong, colors which are soft. When you put red, okay, red stands bold. When you put white, it's not bold. So you are using colors, you are using space. We call it space composition in design language, right? You're using typeface. Typeface means fonts, okay? You're using fonts, and then you're using size, various elements, and you're also using your cultural things, whether it's left to right or top to bottom. When you read bottom to top, it is not what we are always taught to read from top to bottom, right? So top left hand side, that's the reason most of the websites have their logos, because that is way it gets into your head easily. So these, you put these elements, and then you put all your contexts in place, top to bottom, left to right, bold, color, size, and all this. And then you will know which element has to be placed where. That defines how the poster is. Okay. Now there is a context. And I keep talking about context, I'll tell you what I mean. Suppose I'm doing a billboard. Billboard is
Yeah, those big ones.
the big one, right?
Electronic billboards or painted ones?
Whatever, printed billboards, where you have billboards, right? If I'm talking about, say, spectacles of Ben Franklin. So there is a billboard which has spectacles. Then next to it, there is a Volvo car, somebody selling a car, then somebody selling Airtel, and then somebody selling. So if I'm traveling in the road, say, on an average of 5 kilometers per hour, which is the minimum, first you have to establish the context that you are selling spectacles amongst people who are selling so many other things. One fellow is selling car next to you, the other fellow is selling mobile phone next to you, the other fellow is selling some financial service next to you. So you have to first tell your customer, dude, I'm selling spectacles, before you telling what brand and what quality of the spectacles in the first place. That is later. You have to put them in context that this is what you're selling in the first place. After you have put them in context, next you have to tell them that in that such a short span of time, that why you are better than others, or why they have to buy you, whether it is 50% discount or coupons or all this. So you create the context first of the poster, and then you sell. If that spectacle brand poster is already in a spectacle shop, right? If you have entered a spectacle shop out of Ray-Ban and Miami and so many others, you see a poster, the audience or the customer is already in the context. You don't have to now emphasize that it is a spectacle brand. In that poster, you don't have to write in the poster that it is available in the shop. You're already in the shop. Whereas there you might need to write where it is available. If you're still writing and making a poster which is stuck in the shop saying that available in Begumpet, you're already in Begumpet, you're already in the shop. In the context, it is not needed. You're not composed your space well, you're unnecessarily putting information. So that is one thing. So understand your context. Based on the context, you understand your priority, hierarchy. Based on that, that is how your poster will look like. Okay, it is absolute science. Second thing what I want is, for startups, when you're taking forms and trying to take information from people, if you have asked them for their PIN code, you don't have to ask them for the city. But certain information, today's day and age, if you are using artificial intelligence, you know the details of that information. It is painful for me as a customer to enter my city and my PIN code. Imagine I entered my PIN code, my state, city, everything is filled. Till my colony is already filled. I just have to fill my house number. Then I move to the next step. It is so easy for a customer. Business perspectives, what they do is they get to this habit of asking them for every information, just for the heck of it. And by the time I fill all my form, I'm no more inclined or tuned to even fill the rest of the form, and it's switch where the business is lost. So you be smart about it. Especially this new generation needs to be smart. If you feel that these guys, you're developing an app, and the app is going to be so good that you want them to experience, and only if they experience is when they understand that it is good. Don't ask them to register on the face of it. Let them experience it. Okay. While they're buying and checking out, you take information that is relevant to you. So they've already tick marked and they've made their cart ready and then going to check out. Since they have already put a lot of efforts in making that cart and selecting the right saree, color or anything, at that point of checkout, they'll be forced to give you information. They will spend that extra time or extra mile, they'll go that extra mile to give you that information. Imagine before everything you have asked for an entire 2-page form and you expect them to fill that form. They're not even going to fill the form. They're not going to see what products you have, and you might lose out in your business. So these are the things that are not taught in books, where you have to take a call time and again. Whether filling the form in the first place is first or not. Okay. Now coming to extension.
Sir,
of your question.
how expensive is this making apps, and who does it, sir? Actually.
See, app you need somebody who knows Java.
Okay.
Okay,
How
that
expensive
what-
is it? How expensive will it be?
See, I can tell you, a basic guy whom you pay a salary of say 25 to 30,000 per month can do
Per month? Oh,
a salaried employee of 25 to 30,000 can do a decent app in 2 to 3 months, just to give you a ballpoint figure. But coming to this, when it is creative manner, there is no amount that you can put onto it. You can't say, if I have to make a movie, how expensive is a director's, how much should I budget for a director? If you are looking at Mani Ratnam, it's different from if you're looking at. So what you want within your budget, you try to plan. But there are market ballpoint figures, like I told you, that you need, say, a guy of 30,000, 25 to 30,000, 2 months of his time, you will have an app ready. If he knows how to take leverage of the open source that is already there in the market and stuff. So that is one way. The other way is there are complete apps that are there in the open source where you can just pick up that open source and make small tweaks to customize your business. Somebody is doing it for some other business, while you need the same platform for something else. You either go pay him some direct money and you save up on time, or if it is there in the open source market on the internet, you just buy that app and put your own name and branding to it and push it forward. So there is no A, B, and rates for it, but yeah.
thank you, sir.
There are some things that are mandatory. Suppose you're opening a website, right? How much does it take to make a website, right? It could take 15,000, it could take 50 lakhs, it could take, there's no number to it. But there are things like, say, you'll have to pay 850 or something for the name every year to go. Domain name, you need to buy $1,000 every year for the space that you take. You need 6,000 every year so that you don't get that HTTPS security code that, is your website secure? Do you want to trust this website? That for every email address, you need to take 300 or 500 rupees. So for 10 email addresses, 3,000. So this adds up to 15,000-20,000 a month, which is going directly to the guy who is hosting the website or who's selling you the space. It is not going to the guy who's building your website. That space versus building your space, all that adding to, and whom are you using? How creative is he, right? So
Why can't business people have their own websites? Is it more expensive than giving it to these guys? Once and for all, they can have their own space and website, no? They can invest in their own website.
So the investment for servers runs in crores. It's not tangible. It's not. So you take a part of the server to host what you want. So if your business grows as big as Amazon or Google, then you can buy your own servers and do what you're saying.
So they are more expensive for the servers.
Yeah. So all that you are buying a small space from them and you are taking it as a rent every year and you need to pay. The designing and all, of course, is done in-house.
But in India, how is it abroad, sir? The small entrepreneurs also go for these kind of
There is no difference in today's day and age. There's no difference between India and abroad. Other than the timelines, it's all global. It's all same.
Okay. Okay.
So people who have traveled abroad, there's no difference. It's just the conversion rates and the time. lag.
Like I heard that it is much more easier for the entrepreneurs abroad or other countries for them to penetrate easy with the products than in India.
Nothing.
So that is why I'm asking you. Is there any?
Nothing. Abroad people are coming to India because India has a lot of people they can experiment with. Okay. The perception is different because they feel they have spent $1,000. We feel we have spent $70,000 because the value of the money is different. So they feel it is easy. We feel it is difficult. Lifestyle, economical, all these things are playing into your mind, making you feel that it is different. But if you put yourself on a global audience and you're dealing everything with USDs, it is absolutely the same.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Anything from advertising side perspective, marketing perspective, you guys are talking about more technical, which is not my domain, but yeah, glad I could answer some questions.
Yeah. One point I wanted to ask. See, most of the startups are tech based. Means, see, when you are introducing a market into product market, there is a comparison for anybody. Like if I want to introduce a mango drink, I compare myself with like a global MNC or a local guy or a mango juice maker. But if it is entirely new product, you have to introduce that product to the customer. So how that branding, would that branding helps are there, or you should go put more time into that? First you have to convince the customer or explain the tech into that.
Nice. Real life questions are coming out. So good. So the thing is, if you have to make your mark, you either take certain amount of time, or you have the need to make it quick. Got it? So within short period of time, you want to announce yourself that you have arrived, or you want to announce to a larger audience that this is the product that is available. Okay, whether they buy it, whether they like it, they don't like it, they need it, they don't need it, all different questions. First announcement that you have that there is a product that is available. Okay.
Right.
And how soon can you announce to the more number of people is what you, and then, like I said, second question is, how are they going to pursue your product? So one is you either ride on the goodwill created by somebody else, because it's going to take a lot of time for you in today's age to create that goodwill, right? If Godrej has created certain goodwill that it has certain standards in a domestic market, it has taken n number of years.
Of course.
If today Godrej has to come into the market, everybody wants things, results instant, right? In today's age, how do Godrej go like an instant create a perception that it has certain standards? One way is to ride on somebody else's goodwill. Second way is to pay, right? You pay, Dhoni comes in, and Dhoni is your brand ambassador, perception of the product changes instantly. One way. You don't have the money, you go to somebody who's taken slog number of years and created a YouTube page, and he finally has 10 million viewers, and you go and tell that guy, while you're doing your tabla performance next, tell that the sponsor is done by this guy. 10,000 people instantly know that you are the guy who has a product who's selling apple juice or mango juice. So instead of you spending dog number of years to come to the stage, you are riding on a goodwill of
And you
somebody.
pay something for that, right? It's like again sort
So
of influence.
that is the terms are between you and him.
Yes.
Okay. You
Right.
barter something with him, or you put it in cash for your terms with him. So that is one way of doing it, is to ride on somebody else's goodwill. Second way is to create your own goodwill. While you ride on somebody else's, to start your, while you are doing same thing what I said, while you are doing advertising, you need to also start doing branding.
Okay. So this could be influencing as well as it could be co-branding.
It is influencing. What is co-branding? What is influencing? It's all the same. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
See,
Right.
fancy people have come up with fancy terminology.
names.
Put it on perspective. Open it up and see what it is.
Yeah, both are same. Nice. Okay, good. So, faculty members, you will be, driving your.
No, I would love to listen from faculty people of what questions they get from their children, because I have no
Exactly.
idea. But maybe that I can help, or I can add some value to that. Anand Garu, are you there? Bhushan Garu, are you there?
Yes, madam. Tell me, madam. Renuka garu.
Can we end this session, or I'll share some links for you guys to at least go through if someone is interested.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Some books
Yes.
that I can.
Sorry?
Renuka Garu,
Sir,
please go ahead.
Sir, I have a doubt, like
Yeah,
newly
please.
startups, how much of budget they should allocate for this advertisement, promotion basically? Like advertisement is a part of promotion, what we teach theoretically, but what percentage as such, or how they can go about it?
See, I'll come to the philosophy part later. I'll tell you a ballpoint figure. Okay. 10% of your
Yes.
advertising today's rate should be the minimum that should go into advertising. 10% of your project cost. Okay. This is purely based out of my experience. What I feel is but this is not industry standards, or you don't blame me that somebody has told me that 10%, so it is 10%. I feel a
Yes, yes.
healthy, suppose you're starting a hospital, 10% of your hospital budget should go into the advertising, right? But coming back to your question, what is the product, right? If you are going to target only local market, then if you are starting a tailoring shop, your advertising budget is much low. Then you're targeting some product, that FMCG product that's going into a supermarket, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what is the business? What is the product? And where do you want to reach? What is your vision? All these things are going to define your the budget of the product. But if I say that answer, you feel that answer is incomplete. So that's the reason I'm just putting a ballpoint figure. First, the 10% is what you need to know. Actually, don't take the 10% for granted. Understand your product. Understand what is the vision that you have, that how many people should use this product in certain time. What is the timeline you're giving for the product for them to use? When are you going to have a break even? Are you comfortable with that break even? So these
Yes, sir.
plans will decide what is the budget that you need to pump in. If I tell you, if the product is new, right? Suppose you are coming up with a product like which nobody has seen. Okay, some guy has come up with a product where you sit on it and you can just climb up any coconut tree sitting on that machine. This
Yes.
product is not there in the market, but you know that people have difficulty doing that. So the target audience of somebody who's going to buy a product to use it to sit and climb coconut trees is very limited. So you clearly know. So now for them, advertising budget is different, advertising locations are different and stuff. So suppose some product which everybody knows, and you know that you're going to create one product out of 100 products, and then you're going to create one products. You don't have to talk about your product much, because people already know that the product. You're already creating a product that is already there. So your budget on trying to explain that product is less. If suppose people don't know about Swiggy, they don't know about your product or the app you're coming out, you have come up with something out of the box. So you're going to spend more time trying to tell them that, communicate to them that this product exists and the product works for so and so reasons and stuff. So your pressure on advertising and communication is more. Okay, let's call it communication. Let's not call it advertising and budget.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that product is going to define how much you are going to pump in onto that point.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Anything else?
Sir, one more, like we have in commerce, B2B, like model. When a startup is starting the product, which is to be sold only to the producers or manufacturers, like, and they may be very, very few, because in the market, general consumers are different. We have business. Then how they should approach them, and how they can promote, because these kind of things will not work out. They have to go personally and promote their product, and how it is going to be like, what are the other methods which they can adopt?
See, B2B products generally are basically happens through these exhibitions that have happened. Okay, there's a lot of exhibitions that happen in the calendar of the years.
Yes, sir.
Then there are forums which are only meant for B2B. There are magazines and information where people dig for only B2B information.
Yes,
Got
sir.
it?
Yes.
So if you're, suppose you're supplying sugarcane to Shiva, because Shiva is going to make sugarcane juice out of it, or is going to make mango juice. So he needs sugar, right? You are a guy who is doing sugarcane juice. So how do you target Shiva? So you understand who are the guys who are going who are into this business of fruit juice and stuff, and then you try to communicate to them. So whether it is B2B or B2C, there is a difference in the way you communicate, but communication has to happen. So B2C, there is emotion, packaging and stuff. So Shiva doesn't need packaging and emotion in the packaging. He needs the raw material. So his
Yes, sir.
priorities and his choices are different. Quality of raw material, cost of raw material, how much time does it take
Exactly.
for him to reach to his factory, and
Factory.
how far is it? So what? So if you have answered his questions, then
Yes,
he's
sir.
going to pick it up from you. And where does Shiva go? The guy in that business will be a better qualified person to tell than me. Whether Shiva goes to exhibitions to see, suppose you are selling, countries selling missiles and guns, right? Where do countries go for buying missiles and guns? They have their annual fairs. So they go to an annual fair. That is B2B business, right? So there are different forums where people sell B2B products. And all the forums that are open for B2C are also forums for B2C products. Doesn't mean that B2B you don't put on your ad on newspaper, or you don't put your ad in social media or any other print media or billboards or anything.
Yes,
So
sir.
all the platforms that are open for B2C are also open for B2B. But again, different based on your context, you choose what is wise for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So can we end this session because it's 4 o'clock?
Right. Right. Yeah. Sure.
I
Yeah.
don't know if I've added value to what you guys are
No.
doing.
Actually, I have done a really, past few days it was more of PPT presentations. This is the one session
because-
which didn't have PPT, but good. I mean, that's enough. We don't need PPT as such. We are given.
Because you called me yesterday and you said,
I know.
you need to
It's on my
I'll
side.
make some time.
Take that. But you have done an amazing job, and you have given like.
Thanks.
We are not doing some syllabus here. We want to give some kind of orientation and
No, I wanted to give
Right.
my perspective, because day in and day out, I'm dealing with the same thing what you guys
Correct.
what you guys asked. So
Yes.
my perspective could add value to
Absolutely.
people who are on different side of the fence. So that's the
Definitely.
reason I thought
They
it's
want
more of
anything
a-
deeper, they'll always go to experts like you. But at this point of time, when the students approach them, they should not be looking at corners of the wall or something like that. They should be able to give some input. Okay, this is what.
If I have to summarize everything, make sure you're doing a product which is going to solve some purpose, which is going to impact somebody's life. Don't make a product trying to say I'll raise funds, I'll get funds based on this product. Okay, that is point one. Point two, like I said, emotion has happened in the mind. The sale has happened in the mind the day they have decided to buy the product. Sale has not happened when they're taken. Third thing, what I want to say, which I missed out, people have already made a decision what to buy.
Yes.
Okay, your brochures and other material, later they come so that they can validate their decision. Got it? So when I'm talking about emotion, okay, Usha Garu asked about posters and emotion. When a poster has created an emotion, that emotion has triggered me to buy the product. Now, if I'm buying a phone for $1 lakh, that day I've decided the sale is over. Now, if I'm buying a phone for $1 lakh, I need to convince myself, I need to convince my people around me that the decision what I have made is right.
Right.
For that, I need a brochure and I need specifications to tell myself and to tell people that I have made a right decision. Okay. So this is from person to person. There is a bunch of people who feel that technical specifications is what drives the product, the brand what drives the product. I am from the other bunch who feel that the emotion is what drives the product. So this is purely my experience. Okay, that emotion is what drives the product or the sale. Once the sale has happened in the mind, okay, everything else, the specifications and the good brochures is not for me to get convinced. It is for me to
Convince others.
convince myself that the decision that I've already made
Is
is
not
the right
wrong.
decision. Is not wrong. So if you can remember this, I think this will be a very good tip to take business forward.
Right. Right, sir.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. It was
Thank you very much for your time,
lovely.
sir, for both of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
A good day.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, right. So now we will be ending today's session also quite early. I was thinking, Krishna Rao would take more time, but he could summarize it in a short period. So we'll also end the day, unless you have any other specific things to ask or anything to make a point. Okay, just before ending, I have 4 more minutes I'll take. I just give 2 examples about branding, which I personally witnessed. He was talking about left to right and right to left, right? So about that, I'll give an illustration. So there was a big branding agency in Arab, UAE, United Arab Emirates. So there they wanted to put up a cool drink poster. So this US company wanted to penetrate into Arab and start launching something new product. So they hired a agency from US. So that guy came and did the study, all those things, and they finally put the billboarding. Okay, Usha madam, he has put the billboarding, and then they, after 2 months over, 3 months over, sales did not, spike. So in fact, it was dipping. The sales, the graph was dipping. It was supposed to raise because it's a well-known factor that when you put a poster, billboard, big ones, eye-catchy things on the highways, it's supposed to increase, right? But it was decreasing. Then a lot of brainstorming session was happening. Why it is decreasing? Celebrities have endorsed this particular drink, and experts in the marketing people have come. But why it is dipping? So
Because they have to read from right to left.
Exactly, that's what exactly happened. So they brought a US guide to speak in Arabic. So this is what happens. Rather than they should have got a ad maker from the Arab countries itself. So it was having 3 vertical portions. In one level left, that guy was sad, and in the middle there was a cool drink, and right he was very happy. So in US it means that when you're sad, you drink this cool drink, you'll become happy. But in Arab it was like you drink, you are happy, but you after drinking this particular cool drink, you become sad. So this is one thing that happened. And second thing is how you make it emotional. Madam, in your teens, you would have got this Chakra Gold tea, right? Chakra Gold. So even now it is not that famous because other teas have come, but this is there. The classical people and this 80s, 70s people still they say Chakra Gold, Chakra Gold. Okay. Now it seems once Chakra Gold was doing well, but it was not able to break the point. Means every year on year sales, only 10% was happening. They wanted some 20-25%. 10% it's boring for any company 10%. There is no acceleration. There is a velocity, but there is no acceleration. So they wanted to say 20% growth. Now how to do it? So they brought a branding lady. And in fact, I met this lady also. She had come last year to our center to give a talk on branding. So this lady was narrating her story. So they also went to different places to understand the customers. So there are 2 important customers for NET. One is domestic customer, one is commercial customer. Domestic customer, who will decide? It is the homemaker who makes the tea. In some homes, it is the father or head of the family who drinks maximum tea, decides which tea to be brought. But in majority cases, where they found was the woman of the house who makes the decision which tea brand she has to buy. So they found out whom to influence it at home. But then when they went to hotel, in hotel who will decide which tea to buy or which salt to buy? People thought different things, owner or master, so many things. Actually, in tea making, madam, tea milk section is different from rest of the section. Actually, if you see in hotels, tea section is handled by tea master. Okay, that's a different section, right? In any hotel, Darshini hotels or any hotel, tea is a separate counter. It's a separate entity itself. In some hotel, in fact, tea has a separate bill itself. So anyways, so they understood that a tea master is the one who is going to take the decision. Though the payer is the owner Malik, but the decider is the master, tea master. So how to give a special recognition to these people, or how to influence these guys that our sales will go? They did only two simple things. Same tea, no other process innovation, no other product innovation. Same tea pack, same tea powder, they packed in two different brands. One is Tea Master Special. Okay, the label is Tea Master Special Blend. That is one. That is 500 grams and 1,000 grams packets. Another one is 150 to 250 packets. Kasturi. Okay, it was very famous even in Karnataka also. Kasturi. It is behind the tea packet. There was the Saraswati, Lakshmi, Durga, different feminine goddesses pictures, and you can also cut them and make it like a Toranam kind of thing. So, okay, for women, the size and the Toranam and that's Lakshmi, Saraswati, all those things for them, no? So they don't feel like throwing also. So the longer you keep in the home, every day you keep seeing, no, the impact, the visual impact. So that's how the sales went in domestic line. But the moment in the commercial line, Tea Master Special. The moment you say Tea Master Special, the perception for the tea master is, okay, this is made exceptionally, exclusively for my sake, for Tea Master's sake. Actually, it's no difference in the process. There's no difference in the product also. The same product. Branding is different. So this is how you can play around. And they did not lie. They did not tell lies also. See, it's very important that to keep in mind that telling lies is different from emphasizing certain point. And another thing you would have seen in most of the vegetable oils, 0% cholesterol. Any biology person can tell no plants have cholesterol in their body. No plant on the earth can produce cholesterol. So an oil is coming from coconut or a groundnut or a sunflower, how can it have cholesterol? But they are putting 0% cholesterol. And that is true. But they wanted you to rate that 0% cholesterol, so it might be good for health.